Okay, here we go. In the summer of '06, when my roommate said, "Hey, you gotta check this." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "This site that lets anyone upload whatever they like." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Really?" I said, "Literally?" And he said, "Literally." I said, "Anyone?" And he said, "Anyone." I said, "Anything?" And he said, "Anything." I said, "I gotta see this thing." He said, "No kidding." Then I got addicted, and I was like, "Oh my God." He was like, "I know." I was like, "I know." He was like, "I know." And then I was like, "I know." Then he was like, "What?" And I was like, "You know what we gotta do?" And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "We gotta post something too." And he was like, "True." So we made our first video, put it up and got 3 views. So then we made a second one, then we made a third, then we made a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth, and a seventh, and a million more. And then we started getting tens of thousands of views, and then we started getting hundreds of thousands of views, and then we started getting millions of views, and then we started getting tens of millions of views. And then boom, all of a sudden we went from making videos in our living room to getting flown out to LA to perform at the first YouTube Awards. And we were like, "Oh my God." And they were like, "Yeah." And we were like, "What?" And they were like, "Not just that." And we were like, "What?" And they were like, "Also, there's something called YouTube partners, and you're the first ones, and you can start getting paid." And we were like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." They were like, "Yeah, yeah." And we were like, "Oh my God, oh my God." They were like, "Yeah, yeah." We were like, "Oh my God, oh my God." They were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Do you know what this means?" And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "We're gonna be so rich." And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh my God." And they were like, "Oh my God." And they were like, "Oh my God." And they were like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Not just that." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "It's also only the beginning." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Because soon there are gonna be hundreds of thousands of people doing what you do, but better." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah." Like every one of them will be a one-person film crew who just shoot, edit. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah." And it's gonna be amazing. And you're gonna be like, "Oh my God." And I was like,